Every Tuesday morning, the sun barely touched the mountain peaks when Samuel Washington stepped out of his old blue pickup truck. The Mountain View shooting range looked peaceful in the early light. Samuel moved slowly but with purpose, his black work boots making soft sounds on the gravel parking lot. He was 78 years old, with silver hair and deep lines around his eyes that spoke of many years in the sun. Samuel wore the same clothes every Tuesday. A faded red flannel shirt that had seen better days, clean khaki pants with sharp creases, and those same work boots he had worn for 10 years. In his weathered hands, Samuel carried a brown leather gun case. The leather was old and cracked, like his hands, but well cared for. He also brought a silver thermos filled with black coffee. No cream, no sugar, just coffee, hot and strong. The shooting range clerk, a young man named Jake, looked up from his newspaper when Samuel walked in. "Morning, Mr. Washington," Jake said with a smile. "Lane 7 is ready for you." Samuel nodded. "Thank you, son." His voice was quiet and deep, like distant thunder. Samuel always used Lane 7, every single Tuesday for the past 3 years. Never Lane 6 or 8, always 7. The other shooters at the range knew this, and they left Lane 7 empty for him. He walked to his lane with careful steps. Samuel was old, but he moved like a man who knew exactly where he was going. His back was straight, his shoulders square. There was something about the way he walked that made people notice, even if they didn't understand why. At Lane 7, Samuel set down his gun case on the small table. He opened it slowly, like he was opening a jewelry box. Inside was a .45 caliber pistol. The gun was old but spotless. It shone in the morning light. Samuel poured coffee from his thermos into the metal cap. He took a sip and looked down the range at the paper targets. 25 yards away. Not far for most shooters, but Samuel wasn't like most shooters. Around him, the shooting range was waking up. Younger men arrived with fancy equipment and multiple guns. They wore tactical gear and talked loudly about their weapons. They set up expensive scopes and modern pistols that cost more than Samuel's truck. But Samuel paid them no attention. He loaded his old pistol with 6 bullets. His movements were precise, like a doctor performing surgery. Each bullet went into the chamber with a soft click. The young shooters began firing. Bang, bang, bang. Rapid shots that echoed through the range. Some laughed and joked between rounds. Others cursed when they missed their targets. Samuel raised his pistol. He stood with his feet apart, his body turned slightly to the side. His grip was firm but not tight. He breathed in slowly, then let half the air out of his lungs. The first shot cracked through the air, a single, clean sound. Samuel lowered his pistol and waited. He took another sip of coffee. Then he raised his gun again. Another shot, another pause, another sip of coffee. The young men at the other lanes fired dozens of bullets while Samuel fired just one. But when the targets came back, Samuel's had 6 holes in the center, tight together, like they were made by one bullet. "How does that old man shoot so well?" asked a young shooter to his friend. "I don't know," his friend replied. "He's been coming here for years. Never says much, just shoots and leaves." Samuel heard them but said nothing. He packed his pistol back in its case. He cleaned up his area, throwing away his coffee cup and picking up his empty bullet cases. He nodded to Jake at the front desk. "See you next Tuesday, Mr. Washington," Jake called out. Samuel walked to his truck. In 2 hours, he had fired exactly 36 bullets. All had hit their targets perfectly. Now he would go home to his small house and read the newspaper. Next Tuesday, he would return to Lane 7. The young shooters watched him drive away. They wondered about the quiet old black man who shot better than any of them. But they would never guess his secret. They would never know that Samuel Washington was much more than a retired man with a hobby. Samuel had secrets that would shock them. Secrets hidden under his flannel shirt. Secrets that a young Navy SEAL recruit would soon discover. The following Tuesday, the Mountain View shooting range buzzed with more energy than usual. Marcus Thompson stepped through the front door like a storm rolling in. He was 24 years old, tall and muscular, with short black hair and bright, confident eyes. Marcus carried 3 large black bags filled with equipment. His boots were shiny and new. His clothes looked expensive. Tactical pants with many pockets, a tight-fitting black shirt, and a military-style cap. Everything about him screamed Special Forces. "Morning," Marcus said to Jake at the front desk. His voice was loud and cheerful. "I need a lane for about 4 hours. Got some serious training to do." Jake looked up from his computer. "Sure thing. Lane 3 is available. That work for you?" "Perfect," Marcus said, already pulling out his credit card. "I'm Marcus, by the way. Just finished my first phase of Navy SEAL training. Figured I'd keep my skills sharp while I'm on leave." The word SEAL made Jake's eyes widen. "Wow, that's impressive. Welcome to Mountain View." Marcus carried his bags to Lane 3 and began unpacking. Other shooters stopped what they were doing to watch. Out came 3 different pistols, 2 rifles, boxes of ammunition, and electronic equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. "Holy cow," whispered a man in the next lane. "Look at all that gear." Marcus heard him and grinned. "Yeah, they give us some pretty cool toys in the Navy. This here," he said, holding up a sleek black pistol, "is what we use for close combat training." Soon, a small crowd gathered around Marcus. He loved the attention and began telling stories about his training. His voice carried across the shooting range as he described obstacle courses, underwater missions, and survival exercises. "We had to stay awake for 72 hours straight," Marcus explained, setting up his first target. "Then they dropped us in the middle of nowhere with just a knife and a compass." The other shooters listened with wide eyes. They asked questions about SEAL training, about the weapons, about what it felt like to be part of such an elite group. Marcus was in his element. He demonstrated proper shooting stances, explained advanced breathing techniques, and showed off equipment that most people had never seen before. When he started shooting, his skills were obvious. Fast, accurate, impressive. Bang, bang, bang. His shots came quickly. The electronic target showed perfect hits every time. The crowd around him cheered and clapped. "How do you shoot so fast and still hit the target?" asked a young woman. "Practice," Marcus said with a confident smile. "Lots and lots of practice. In SEAL training, we fire thousands of rounds every week." As Marcus reloaded his pistol, he looked around the shooting range. His eyes moved from lane to lane, taking in the other shooters. Most were middle-aged men with standard equipment. Nothing special. Then his gaze fell on Lane 7. There was an old black man there, maybe in his 70s. He was wearing an old flannel shirt and looked completely out of place among all the modern equipment and tactical gear. The man was shooting very slowly, 1 shot at a time, with long pauses between each shot. Marcus watched as the old man raised his pistol, fired once, then lowered it again. The movement was smooth and controlled, like a dancer performing the same routine for the 100th time. "Who's that?" Marcus asked Jake, pointing toward Lane 7. "Oh, that's Mr. Washington," Jake replied. "He comes in every Tuesday. Been doing it for years. Nice old guy, but he keeps to himself." Marcus studied the elderly man more carefully. There was something about his posture, his stance, the way he held his weapon that caught Marcus's attention. It wasn't the shooting style of a hobbyist or a casual gun owner. "Interesting," Marcus murmured to himself. He turned back to his own practice, but found himself glancing at Lane 7 every few minutes. The old man's shooting technique was beginning to fascinate him in a way he couldn't quite explain. Marcus could not stop watching Samuel Washington. While the crowd around Marcus talked and laughed, his eyes kept drifting to Lane 7. The old man shot so differently from everyone else at the range. It was like watching 2 different sports. At the other lanes, people fired quickly. Bang, bang, bang. Bang! They emptied their guns fast, reloaded and did it again. Some talked while they shot. Others cursed when they missed. But Samuel was different. He fired one shot, then stopped. He would stand there for 30 seconds, sometimes a full minute, just thinking. Then he would raise his gun again and fire one more shot. Marcus watched Samuel's feet. They were spread exactly shoulder-width apart. His left foot was slightly forward. His body turned at a perfect angle. Marcus had learned these things in SEAL training, but somehow Samuel's stance looked even more natural. "That's textbook form," Marcus whispered to himself. Samuel's hands were what really caught Marcus's attention. The old man's fingers were weathered and wrinkled, but they moved with perfect control. His grip on the pistol was firm but relaxed. When he pulled the trigger, nothing else moved. Not his shoulders, not his head, not even his breathing. Marcus had trained with some of the best shooters in the military. Navy SEALs were taught by experts who had decades of experience. But watching Samuel shoot was like watching a master painter work with a brush. After an hour, Marcus decided to check Samuel's target. When the shooting stopped for a safety break, he walked over to lane 7. The target came sliding back on its wire system. Marcus's jaw dropped. Samuel had fired 12 shots. All 12 bullets had hit within a circle smaller than a quarter. The holes were so close together, they almost looked like one big hole. "How is that possible?" Marcus said out loud. Samuel looked at him and smiled quietly. "Practice, son. Just practice." But Marcus knew it wasn't just practice. He had practiced for years. So had his SEAL instructors. None of them could shoot like this. This was something else. This was the kind of accuracy that came from somewhere deeper than training. Marcus introduced himself. "I'm Marcus Thompson, Navy SEALs." "Samuel Washington," the old man replied, shaking Marcus's hand. Samuel's handshake was firm but gentle. "Thank you for your service, son." "Thank you for yours," Marcus said automatically, then realized he didn't even know if Samuel had served in the military. Samuel just nodded and went back to loading his pistol. Marcus returned to his own lane, but his concentration was broken. He kept watching Samuel out of the corner of his eye. Every shot the old man took was perfect. Not good, not great, perfect. During lunch break, Marcus sat at a table where he could see lane 7. Samuel ate a simple sandwich and drank water from a plastic bottle. Nothing fancy, but even the way he ate seemed purposeful and controlled. Marcus noticed other things too. Samuel never wasted movement. When he picked up his pistol, his hand went exactly where it needed to go. When he set it down, he placed it in the exact same spot every time. The old man cleaned his gun after every session. He wiped down each part carefully, checking everything twice. Most people at the range just packed up and left. Samuel treated his weapon like it was something precious. Where did he learn to shoot like that? Marcus wondered. By the end of the day, Marcus was more curious than ever. He had seen professional shooters, military instructors, and competition champions. None of them had Samuel's level of precision and control. As Samuel packed his leather gun case and prepared to leave, Marcus wanted to ask him questions. Where did you learn to shoot? Were you in the military? What branch? When? Where? But something stopped him. Samuel seemed like a private man. He had been polite, but hadn't volunteered any information about himself. Marcus watched the old man walk to his pickup truck. Samuel moved with the same careful precision he used when shooting. Every step had purpose. Tomorrow I'll talk to him more, Marcus promised himself. But first, he needed to figure out why Samuel Washington shot like no one else he had ever seen. For 3 weeks, Marcus came to the shooting range every Tuesday. He always arrived early, hoping to get more chances to talk with Samuel. But the old man remained polite yet distant. He answered Marcus's questions with short, simple responses that gave away nothing about his past. "Nice weather today," Marcus would say. "Yes, it is," Samuel would reply. "How long have you been shooting?" Marcus asked once. "Long time," Samuel answered, then went back to his practice. Marcus tried different approaches. He talked about guns, about accuracy, about different shooting techniques. Samuel listened politely but never shared much in return. The old man seemed happy to let Marcus do most of the talking. But Marcus noticed things, small things that most people would miss. Samuel's boots, for example. They looked like regular work boots, but Marcus had learned to spot military-issue footwear. These had been resoled many times, but the shape and style looked familiar. The way Samuel stood. His posture was perfect, even when he wasn't shooting. Shoulders back, head up, feet planted firmly. It was the kind of posture that became automatic after years of military training. Most interesting was how Samuel scanned the room. His eyes moved constantly, checking exits, watching other people, noting changes in his environment. Marcus had been taught the same habits in SEAL training. It was called situational awareness, and it became second nature to soldiers who had been in dangerous places. On the fourth Tuesday, something changed. The afternoon was warm, and the shooting range felt stuffy despite the air conditioning. Samuel had been shooting for about an hour when he paused to take a drink of water. He unscrewed the cap from his plastic bottle and tilted his head back to drink. As he reached for the bottle, Samuel's flannel shirt sleeve rode up his left arm. Just for a moment. Maybe 3 seconds. That's when Marcus saw it. A tattoo. Just a small piece of it, but enough to make Marcus's heart skip a beat. The tattoo was on Samuel's forearm, hidden under the long sleeve of his shirt. Marcus only caught a glimpse of black ink, what looked like part of a design with wings, maybe an eagle, and some numbers or letters. But it wasn't just any tattoo. Marcus had spent months studying military history as part of his SEAL training. He had seen old photographs, read classified reports, learned about special units from past wars. The small piece of tattoo he saw looked familiar. Very familiar. Samuel quickly pulled his sleeve down and continued drinking his water. If he noticed that Marcus had seen anything, he didn't show it. Marcus turned back to his own target, but his hands were shaking slightly as he loaded his pistol. His mind raced with possibilities. What kind of unit would have tattoos like that? When would Samuel have gotten it? And why was he keeping it hidden? The young SEAL recruit had learned about Vietnam War special operations units in his training. Groups with names like MACV SUSOG, Phoenix Program, and other classified operations. These were small teams that did dangerous missions deep behind enemy lines. The soldiers in these units often got tattoos to honor their service and remember fallen comrades. Could Samuel have been part of something like that? Marcus tried to focus on his shooting, but he couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. He fired several rounds, but his accuracy was poor. His mind was elsewhere, trying to piece together clues about the quiet old man in Lane 7. When it was time for another safety break, Marcus walked past Samuel's lane. He looked for any other hints about the hidden tattoo, but Samuel's sleeves stayed firmly in place. "Everything all right, son?" Samuel asked, noticing Marcus seemed distracted. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied quickly, "just thinking about something." Samuel nodded and smiled. Sometimes thinking can hurt your shooting. Clear mind, steady hand. As Marcus returned to his lane, he realized that Samuel had just given him advice using words that sounded very much like something a military instructor might say. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept seeing that glimpse of the tattoo in his mind, trying to remember where he had seen similar designs before. He had a feeling that Samuel Washington was much more than just a quiet old man who liked to shoot on Tuesdays. Marcus decided he needed to learn more, but he would have to be very careful about how he went about it. Marcus couldn't eat dinner that night. He sat at his kitchen table with his laptop, still seeing that glimpse of Samuel's tattoo in his mind. He had to know what it meant. He started with a simple search: Vietnam War military tattoos. The first results showed common tattoos from that era: eagles, skulls, unit names, dates of service. Nothing that matched what he had seen on Samuel's arm. Marcus needed to dig deeper. He searched for Special Operations Vietnam tattoos and classified military units tattoos. Still nothing that looked right. But as he read more, Marcus learned about secret military operations that most people had never heard of. Marcus found websites about NACV-SOG, the Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. He read that it was one of the most secret military units in American history. They did missions in Cambodia and Laos that the government never admitted happened. These guys were crazy brave, Marcus whispered as he read. NACV-SOG soldiers jumped into enemy territory with no backup. They gathered intelligence, rescued prisoners, and disrupted enemy supply lines. Most of their missions were so secret that families were told their loved ones died in training accidents. Marcus found photos of NACV-SOG veterans from reunion meetings. Many of them had tattoos. Some showed skulls with wings. Others had unit numbers and dates. A few had eagles with lightning bolts. Then Marcus found something that made his blood run cold. It was a black and white photo from a military archive. The caption read, NACV-SOG team after successful mission, 1968. 5 soldiers stood together, muddy and tired but smiling. 3 were white, 2 were black. One of the black soldiers looked familiar. Marcus zoomed in on the photo. The soldier was young, maybe 22 or 23 years old. His face was thinner, his hair was short, but the eyes looked the same. The same steady, calm eyes that Marcus saw at the shooting range every Tuesday. Could that be Samuel? Marcus wondered. The photo was too old and grainy to be sure, but the more Marcus looked at it, the more convinced he became. The soldier in the photo had the same strong jawline, the same way of standing with perfect posture. Marcus searched for more information about black soldiers in NACV-SOG. He found stories about men who volunteered for the most dangerous missions in the war. These soldiers often came from poor families and saw military service as a way to prove themselves. Many of them were incredibly skilled. They had to be. NACV-SOG missions had death rates that were kept secret because they were so high. Only the best soldiers survived. Marcus read about the Phoenix program, another secret operation. Small teams of soldiers worked with CIA agents to capture or kill enemy leaders. These missions were so classified that many details were still secret 50 years later. He found information about other covert operations, Project Gamma, Operation Cherry, and dozens of missions that had code names but no official records. The soldiers who participated in these operations were sworn to secrecy. Many took their secrets to the grave. As Marcus read more, he realized why Samuel might be so quiet about his past. These operations were controversial. Some people called them war crimes. Others said they were necessary to win the war. Either way, the soldiers who did these missions faced criticism when they came home. Marcus found a website run by NACV-SOG veterans. They shared stories and tried to help each other deal with memories that haunted them. Many wrote about feeling isolated, about having experiences they couldn't share with anyone who hadn't been there. One post made Marcus pause. We learned to shoot better than anyone because our lives depended on it. Every shot had to count. There were no second chances. That explained Samuel's incredible accuracy. If he had been in NACV-SOG, every bullet he fired in combat could have meant the difference between life and death. Marcus closed his laptop at 2 a.m. His head was spinning with information. But one thing was clear. Samuel Washington was not just a retired old man who liked to shoot. He was possibly one of the most dangerous and skilled soldiers America had ever produced. And tomorrow, Marcus would have to face him at the shooting range, knowing this secret but unable to say anything about it. At least, not yet. Tuesday morning came too slowly for Marcus. He had barely slept, his mind full of questions about Samuel Washington. But he knew he had to be smart about this. If Samuel really was a former Special Operations soldier, there were good reasons why he kept his past secret. Marcus arrived at the shooting range earlier than usual. He wanted to be there when Samuel arrived, to watch him with new eyes. At 8:45 a.m., he saw the familiar blue pickup truck pull into the parking lot. Samuel got out, carrying his leather gun case and thermos. He walked to the building with the same measured steps as always. But now Marcus noticed things he had missed before. The way Samuel's eyes checked the parking lot, how he positioned himself to see all the exits when he walked through the door. "Morning, Mr. Washington," Marcus called out as Samuel approached lane 7. Samuel nodded politely. "Good morning, Marcus." Marcus set up his equipment at lane 3, close enough to talk but not so close as to invade Samuel's space. He had a plan. He would start with compliments about Samuel's shooting, then slowly try to learn more about his background. After both men had fired a few practice rounds, Marcus walked over to lane 7 during a safety break. "Mr. Washington, I have to ask," Marcus said, trying to sound casual. "Where did you learn to shoot like that? Your technique is incredible." Samuel looked up from cleaning his pistol. "Thank you, son. I've been shooting for a long time." "I mean really long time, right?" Marcus pressed gently. "Your stance, your breathing, the way you grip the weapon. It's all textbook perfect." Samuel's hands paused for just a moment as he wiped down his gun. "I suppose I picked it up here and there." Marcus decided to take a small risk. "I'm in the Navy," he said. "SEALs. Actually, we get some pretty intensive firearms training. But watching you shoot is like watching an instructor demonstrate the perfect technique." Samuel's eyes met Marcus's for the first time in weeks. There was something different in his expression. Not unfriendly, but measuring, like he was deciding something about the young man in front of him. "Navy, eh?" Samuel said quietly. "That's good service. Important work." "Thank you, sir. Did you ever serve?" Marcus asked, his heart beating faster. Samuel was quiet for a long moment. He finished cleaning his pistol and set it down carefully on the table. "I served my country, yes." "Which branch?" Marcus asked. Another pause. Samuel poured coffee from his thermos and took a sip. "Army." Marcus felt a surge of excitement, but kept his voice steady. "When did you serve?" "Long time ago," Samuel replied. "Different war. Different world." Marcus knew he was getting somewhere, but he could sense Samuel's guard going up. He needed to be more careful, show that he could be trusted. "I have a lot of respect for the soldiers who came before us," Marcus said, "especially the ones who did the missions that never made it into the history books." Samuel's coffee cup stopped halfway to his lips. He looked at Marcus with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through him. "And what would you know about missions that aren't in history books?" Samuel asked quietly. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. This was a test. Samuel was deciding whether to trust him or to keep his secrets locked away. "I know that some soldiers did things that required incredible courage," Marcus said carefully. "Things that kept America safe, even if America never knew about it. I know that those soldiers came home to a country that couldn't understand what they had sacrificed." Samuel was silent for a long time. He looked down at his hands, weathered and scarred from decades of work and worry. Finally, he spoke. "That's not something most people understand, son." "Maybe not," Marcus agreed. "But some of us try to." Samuel nodded slowly. "I believe that." He picked up his pistol to begin another round of shooting. "Same time next week, Marcus." "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. "Same time next week." As Marcus walked back to his lane, he knew something had changed between them. Samuel hadn't revealed his secrets yet, but he was considering it. And that was progress. 2 Tuesdays passed before Marcus decided to take his biggest risk yet. He had been patient, building trust slowly. Samuel had begun staying a few minutes longer after shooting, sharing coffee and making small talk. The older man's past remained locked away. This Tuesday felt different. The shooting range was quieter than usual. Only a few other people were there, all busy with their own practice. Marcus saw his chance. During the lunch break, He walked over to Samuel's table. The old man was eating his usual sandwich and looking out the window. "Mr. Washington," Marcus said, sitting down across from him. "Can I ask you something?" Samuel nodded. "Of course, son." Marcus took a deep breath. This was it. "I've been reading about military history lately, especially about Vietnam. Some fascinating stuff about special operations." Samuel's sandwich paused halfway to his mouth. His eyes became very still, very watchful. "I read about MACV-SOG," Marcus continued carefully, "and the Phoenix program, operations that most people never heard about." Samuel set down his sandwich. His voice was quiet when he spoke. "And why are you reading about such things?" "Because I'm trying to understand what real soldiers went through," Marcus replied. "Not the Hollywood version, the real version." Samuel was silent for a long moment. He looked at Marcus, studying his face like he was trying to read his soul. "MACV-SOG," Samuel said slowly. "That's not something most people know about, son." Marcus felt his heart racing. Samuel had just confirmed something huge without really saying it. "No, it's not," Marcus agreed. "But it should be. Those soldiers deserve better than being forgotten." Samuel's eyes grew distant. "We weren't forgotten. We were erased. There's a difference." The word "we" hung in the air between them. Samuel had just admitted he was part of it, part of the most secret, most dangerous military operations in American history. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "You were MACV-SOG." Samuel looked around the shooting range to make sure no one was listening. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. 1967 to 1970. 3 tours. Teams Viper and Python. Marcus felt like he couldn't breathe. Teams Viper and Python were legendary, even in classified military circles. They had done some of the most impossible missions of the entire war. "How many missions?" Marcus asked quietly. 67 confirmed. Maybe more. After a while, they all blur together. Samuel picked up his coffee with steady hands. "We went places that didn't exist on any map. Did things that never officially happened." Marcus stared at Samuel with new eyes. This quiet old man had parachuted into enemy territory dozens of times. He had survived missions that killed most of the men who attempted them. "The tattoo," Marcus said suddenly. "On your arm. It's your unit insignia, isn't it?" Samuel looked surprised. "You saw that. A few weeks ago, your sleeve rolled up when you reached for water." Samuel was quiet for a moment. Then he made a decision. He rolled up his left sleeve. The tattoo was beautiful and terrible. A black eagle with spread wings, clutching lightning bolts in its talons. Below it were the words Viper Team and the dates 1967 to 1970. Around the eagle were 13 small skulls, each one representing a fallen teammate. 13 good men, Samuel said softly. "Boys, really. Most of them were younger than you." Marcus looked at the tattoo with awe and sadness. Each skull represented a story, a life cut short, a family that lost a son. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. Samuel rolled his sleeve back down. "Because you asked the right questions. Because you understand that some service comes with a price that never gets paid back. And because," he paused, looking directly at Marcus, "I can see in your eyes that you're going to face your own impossible mission someday." Marcus nodded. As a SEAL, he knew that dangerous assignments lay ahead. But now he also knew that he was sitting across from a man who had already faced the worst and survived. "Thank you for trusting me with this," Marcus said. Samuel smiled, the first real smile Marcus had ever seen from him. "Thank you for caring enough to ask." The next Tuesday changed everything between Marcus and Samuel. Instead of setting up his equipment immediately, Marcus walked straight to Lane 7. Samuel was already there, loading his pistol with the same careful movements as always. "Mind if I shoot next to you today?" Marcus asked. Samuel looked up and smiled. "I'd like that, son. Lane 6 is open." For the first time in months, Marcus set up his gear in Lane 6. As they shot side by side, Samuel began talking in ways he never had before. Not about his missions, those stories were still too painful, but about the men he had served with. "Jimmy Torres from Texas," Samuel said between shots. "Could hit a target at 300 yards with a pistol. Swore it was because his grandmother made him hunt rabbits as a boy." Marcus listened carefully as Samuel shared memories of his teammates. Each story revealed something about the bonds formed between soldiers who faced death together. "Bobby Chin was our radio man," Samuel continued. "Smallest guy on the team, but he carried the heaviest pack. Never complained once, even when we had to march for 2 days straight through enemy territory." These weren't the dramatic war stories that Marcus had expected. They were human stories about friendship, loyalty, and loss. Samuel spoke about cooking terrible meals over campfires, about homemade cards games that lasted all night, about letters from home that everyone shared. After their shooting session, Samuel invited Marcus to join him for coffee at a small diner down the road. It was the first time they had spent time together outside the shooting range. Over pie and coffee, Samuel talked more freely than he ever had. He told Marcus about coming home from the war to a country that didn't understand what he had been through, how people called soldiers baby killers and spat on them in airports. "The worst part wasn't the protests," Samuel said, stirring his coffee slowly. "It was the silence. We couldn't talk about what we'd done, what we'd seen. Everything was classified. So we just had to carry it all alone." Marcus began to understand why Samuel had been so careful about sharing his past. These men had been abandoned by their own country, forced to keep their sacrifices secret while being blamed for an unpopular war. "How did you handle it?" Marcus asked. Samuel was quiet for a moment. "Some guys didn't. We lost more men to suicide after the war than we did during it. I was lucky. I found work that kept my hands busy, married a good woman who didn't ask too many questions, had kids who gave me something to live for." Over the following weeks, their Tuesday routine expanded. They would shoot for 2 hours, then have lunch together. Samuel slowly shared more pieces of his past, not the classified details, but the human moments that had shaped him. He talked about the Vietnamese villages they had helped, the families they had protected. He spoke about learning to see the humanity in everyone, even enemies who were trying to kill them. "War teaches you things you can't learn anywhere else," Samuel said one day. "It shows you the worst of people, but also the best. You learn what really matters." Marcus found himself sharing his own experiences from SEAL training. He told Samuel about the physical challenges, the mental tests, the moments when he wanted to quit but didn't. Samuel listened with the understanding of someone who had been through similar trials. He offered advice without being preachy, shared wisdom without being condescending. "The hardest missions aren't the ones where you might die," Samuel told him. "They're the ones where you have to live with what you've done afterward." Marcus realized that Samuel was preparing him in ways that his SEAL instructors couldn't. The old man was teaching him about the emotional and psychological challenges that would come after the physical battles were over. Their friendship deepened with each passing week. Marcus stopped thinking of Samuel as a mysterious old man. Instead, he saw him as a mentor, a living link to military history, and most importantly, as a friend who understood the weight of serving one's country. The shooting range became secondary to their conversations. What mattered now was the bond between two soldiers from different generations, sharing the burden and the honor of military service. 6 months had passed since Marcus first noticed the quiet old man at Lane 7. Now, as he walked into the Mountain View shooting range on a crisp Tuesday morning, he smiled seeing Samuel already at his usual spot. "Morning, Mr. Washington," Marcus called out, using the formal address he had never dropped despite their friendship. "Morning, son," Samuel replied warmly. "Ready for another lesson in patience." Marcus laughed as he set up his equipment in Lane 6. Their Tuesday routine had become the highlight of both their weeks. But today felt different. Samuel seemed more relaxed, almost peaceful. After their first round of shooting, Samuel did something he had never done before. He began unbuttoning his flannel shirt. "It's warm today," he said simply, pulling off the shirt to reveal a white t-shirt underneath. For the first time, Marcus could see Samuel's full tattoo. It covered most of his left forearm, a masterpiece of military art that told the story of his service. The eagle with lightning bolts was just the centerpiece. Around it were names, dates, coordinates of missions, and small symbols that represented specific operations. Marcus stared in amazement. "It's incredible." Samuel looked down at his arm, as if seeing the tattoo for the first time in years. "Took 3 sessions to finish it. Got it done in 1971, right after I came home. Cost me 2 weeks' pay, but I needed something to remember them by." He pointed to each skull around the eagle. "That's Jimmy Torres. Lost him in Cambodia, 1968. This one's Bobby Chen. Stepped on a mine in Laos. Here's Sergeant Williams, our team leader. Toughest man I ever knew." Samuel's voice was steady, but Marcus could see the pain in his eyes as he remembered each fallen friend. "And here," Samuel pointed to a small cross near his wrist, "is for all the ones we couldn't save. Civilians, prisoners, our own men who were already gone when we got there." Marcus understood now why Samuel shot with such precision. Every bullet in practice honored the memory of bullets that had meant life or death in the jungle. "Why are you showing me this now?" Marcus asked. Samuel smiled. "Because I trust you, and because you're about to go into the same kind of work I did. Different war, different enemy, but the same risks." Marcus had received his deployment orders the week before. He would be shipping out to Syria in 2 months for his first real SEAL mission. Samuel continued, "I want you to understand something that no training can teach you. The hardest part isn't the mission itself. It's coming home and trying to fit back into a world that doesn't understand what you've seen." He rolled his sleeve back down partially, covering most of the tattoo, but leaving the eagle visible. "These memories," Samuel tapped his covered arm, "they're not just mine. I carry them for all the men who didn't make it home to carry their own. That's what we do as soldiers. We remember for those who can't." Marcus felt the weight of Samuel's words. He was about to join a brotherhood that stretched across generations, connected by shared sacrifice and unspoken understanding. "I won't forget what you've taught me," Marcus promised. Samuel packed up his pistol with the same careful precision he always used. "Good. And when you come back, and you will come back, you'll have your own stories to carry. That's when you'll really understand what today meant." As they walked toward the exit together, Samuel stopped and extended his hand. "It's been an honor knowing you, Marcus Thompson." Marcus shook the weathered hand firmly. "The honor has been mine, Mr. Washington." They stood in the parking lot for a moment, 2 soldiers from different wars, connected by respect and friendship. "Same time next Tuesday?" Samuel asked with a smile. "Wouldn't miss it," Marcus replied. As Samuel drove away in his blue pickup truck, Marcus understood that he had been given something precious. Not just shooting lessons or military advice, but a connection to history and a model of how to carry the weight of service with dignity. The quiet old man at Lane 7 had taught him the most important lesson of all, that true strength comes not from the battles you fight, but from how you honor those battles for the rest of your life.